Hey, what is up, Demon Soulsers? It's me again, and I thought I'd do something different today. And that is a quote-unquote challenge run of sorts. I've never actually done a challenge run before, so this is going to be quite fun, I think. In this run, I have to beat the game using only historically accurate equipment. That means I can't use anything that's not historical or has existed in real life. There are some rules and exceptions. 1. If I'm using an armor that was in use in a certain period of time, I have to use a weapon that was used during that time too. 2. I can't use anything that doesn't make sense for me to use in my current loadout. For example, I cannot use a scimitar as a 1400s knight, or a rapier with chainmail. Also, as a note, I'm not going to be restricting myself of most consumables just because they are not historically accurate. But I did not use any weapon buffs. 3. I cannot put any elemental or non-physical affinity on my weapon. 4. I can dupe upgraded materials or lesser healing items just so I can save myself the horrible grind and not spend 4 hours grinding for items. But without any more fuss, let's get started with the challenge run. First, I named my character a super fitting name, and then I chose my starting class as Priest because it was the most historically accurate one I could think of. We start with chainmail armor, a mace, and a shield. It's not completely unheard of that people in just chainmail use a mace of any kind, but usually you see them depicted wielding broadswords or longswords and a shield. Chainmail armor has existed ever since the 3rd century BC and was used up until around the 17th century. So it's not like I have to be super strict with the weapon I use. Sure, the chainmail barely looks like chainmail, but it is called that, so we will go with it. Then I started designing my character because playing without a beautiful face is quite literally impossible. I also chose a historically accurate haircut. And by the end of it, I could smell everything, and I had a nice grin on my face. Fully ready for battle. I spawned in, historically, ready to face the tutorial. I was fat rolling, but we all know that shaking the world while rolling is pretty historically accurate. Then, I noticed that when you run while two-handing the mace, it runs as if you're not two-handing it. Very peculiar. But anyway, the tutorial is boring, so you can go straight for the first boss. And hopefully, the first boss doesn't squish me straight up. But thankfully, with enough ass-whacking and patience, he killed our first boss. Next up, the Dragon God, one of the most intimidating bosses in the game. And we are facing him right away. Now, as you can see, I utilized my massive nose as a shield so that the rest of my body wouldn't drag on the ground. And that's pretty damn historically accurate. I am now officially a slave to the Nexus. Wow! Sure does smell good here. Well, now that that's over with, we can go ahead and run straight into Bolitaria. Nothing really special happened here, but I did pick up a few fire bombs and I was planning to use them. Why? Well, fire is a thing that's been around since forever ago. And fire was used in warfare and pillaging, so it didn't seem far-fetched even one bit to use it. But what I will not be using is turpentine, because I was way too unsure about whether people would light their swords on fire or not. And it didn't seem practical, nor did it seem realistic. So I didn't use any weapon buffs. Please do let me know if I'm wrong though. But that aside, let's continue. This boulder always hits me, even though I've been through here a bunch of times, and I have no idea why. And I always know it's coming too. I could also go for the old king here to get his armor, which is sort of similar looking to some old pieces, but I couldn't find any reason to use it because there was no weapon I could pair it with that well. So we're gonna skip that. Also, I did not want to deal with pushing him down the stairwell. Next up, I went to the Dregling Merchant because I could buy some stuff here that would come in handy later. Most importantly, the longsword, because that is what I wanted to switch to. And I also bought the wooden shield, but I never ended up using it. I went ahead and crossed paths with the Strava, so I went ahead and saved him because he is my best buddy. Then I finally remembered to equip my longsword. And I guess forgetting is historically accurate too. I went up to the area with the dragons and they weren't there because I was in pure white tendency. Hey, that's pretty neat. I picked up the Ring of Great Strength and the fat roll was finally gone. Wow, I am the greatest soldier ever. Not only did I lose weight by putting on a ring, and I also defeated 1,000 soldiers by myself, historically. But that was basically it for Bolitaria 1-1. All I had to do now was just kill the Phalanx. The firebombs, as usual, made very short work of him, and my damage without Turpentine was still pretty good, so everything went smoothly, and the Phalanx went down. I listened to the Monumental talk about something, but my feeble, balding, 2-digit IQ soldier mind could not comprehend anything. I used all my souls, then leveled up a bunch of everything for requirements and stats. After that, I went back to Bolitaria because I wanted to grab the winged spear for later. I grabbed the winged spear on the first bridge, and then I just went back. Next, I went to the Stonefang tunnel because I did want to get a certain weapon here, and I do need to come here later anyway. I came across a message that said, "Think hard." And so I did, was thinking real hard. Anyway, no more lollygagging. It's time to get historically serious and go through the area. The first half of Stonefang Tunnel is mostly boring for me, but it does really pump me with dopamine how much upgrade materials these bag-wielding scale miners drop. I'm a big fan of looting and pillaging, which is fitting for today. I paid a visit to these cute little guys. And then I unlocked the shortcut and the blacksmith. Is this gonna be a cameo in every video? Anyway, after being nearly squashed to death, I did actually get lucky and get the weapon I wanted. The Murden Hammer. I'm not gonna use this right now, but it is a historical weapon that closely resembles the Lucerne Hammer, or the Bec de Corbin, which was used in the 15th century all the way to the 17th. So we are gonna have a chance to use it. I mauled some dogs and then activated the water. Also, for some reason, my game audio cut here up until the next recording, so that sucks. It was time for the armor spider now, and wow, this fight was pretty scuffed. Thankfully, I am allowed to use a shield, and that really helped because my damage was very, very pitiful. And it was a long fight. I did end up burning through a lot of my healing items here, but it's fine, really. After a long while, I did manage to take him down and move on. I went ahead and leveled the vitality up and a bit of dexterity in case of weapon requirements. My audio finally comes back here, and I decided to go and continue through Stonefang Tunnel. And I thought it was a great idea to try and face the Flame Lurker early, even though I dealt minuscule damage. It went probably exactly as you expected. Although I did pull through for a while, all I ended up doing was just wasting a lot of healing items. Anywho, I went back to the Stonefang tunnels and went down the elevator. Got distracted by a shiny lizard and greeted my way forward, but I got smacked in the face for it. I'm not letting that one fly, buddy. Yep, they both fell to their deaths. Actually, the second one struggled a bit, but it's okay. They also died the same way. Wow, these are a lot of lizards. Luckily, I got to kill 2 in 1, so that was pretty lucky. I met Patches afterwards, but I never did do anything with him, so sorry, Patches. After a while of looting and exploring, I went back to the blacksmith to upgrade my longsword just a little bit, just in case. Next, I left Stonefang Tunnel to go to the Valley of Defilement, and for one reason. I wanted to historically advance. If I went through here and killed the first boss, I could get the Mirrodin helmet. And use the winged spear paired with the soldier shield so I could look like a 10th century Viking, somewhat. And that was my main goal. All I needed to do was just beat the Leechmonger and find the filthy woman in 5-2 near the end of the swamp. Which really isn't as simple as it sounds, because I died a lot. And when I mean a lot, I mean a lot. I was here for 40 minutes, but I just kept trying. Eventually, after a whole while of dying, I decided to just look up a quick route on YouTube. And there was one I didn't know about, actually. There was actually a nest I could drop down on and skip a few areas, but I somehow made it harder than it should be and died embarrassingly way too many times. But after way too long, there was still no luck, so I just decided to go to a different archstone for now. My next archstone of choice was the Shrine of Storms, and it actually went pretty well. I went through the level normally and killed the Vanguard Demon for some extra souls. And then I hit the skip where you roll off the tower and went straight to the Adjudicator. Our weapon performed pretty well here without a surprise. The longsword is always viable. And, well, the Adjudicator is the Adjudicator, so he went down pretty easy. I went back to the Nexus, leveled up again, and then straight back into World 4. Patches wasn't here this time. I assume because I skipped around him last time in the Stonefang tunnels. And then, yeah. Wait, stop! That's not historically accurate. You can't use soul remains. Can't use those. Who am I kidding? Of course it is. Distractions were used since the start of man. And that was not a very smart place to throw it, huh? Stupid. Stupid, stupid. Super close call, but we did get through the next time around. I went past the big laser dudes, and I had a lot of souls on me. And boom, I am now at the old hero, with 28,000 souls on me. Yeah, that's pretty smart. The damage was okay, but it definitely wasn't impressive. It was gonna be another long boss fight if I did pull through, and I was playing very passive because I was scared of being flattened, so it was going for a while. But eventually I did fall in combat with 28,000 souls on me. Nice. So I went to get them back, and then I lost them all. As a sane person would, I went back to the Valley of Defilement expecting a different outcome this time. And there was one. I actually got to the Leechmonger. Fucking numbskull. Anywho, it went pretty well actually. My damage wasn't too horrible, and we actually managed to out-damage his healing, which is pretty surprising. And then he went down without too much issues. Now, all we needed to do was go through the swamp fully and get what I wanted. The Mirrodin helmet. And also, hopefully, the halberd. I thought it was gonna go well at first, but can you really take my word for it at this point? It went pretty bad, and I struggled to get past a lot of enemies. And on top of that, the poison was not being very nice to me. These big guys were way too tanky for me, so I usually tried to run away from them. But they would always end up catching up to me. Or I would get cornered. After I finally got past this one giant and past the bridge, I encountered two more of them. But it didn't matter. I rushed through and spotted the filthy woman to buy the items I wanted. And I finally got to her. Finally. And we were going to historically advance right in this moment. And, well, yeah. Because of my own stupidity, that happened. Meaning, we cannot advance to that armor and weapon. fuck. It's best not to worry about it because we actually have a few options left. And so that's what I went to do. I went back to Bolitaria 1-2 to find the Dregling Merchant, and then I bought the plate set from him, which resembles the Gothic plate armor from the 15th century, which was a pretty big advancement. Along with it, I used the Murden Hammer, since it was used around the same time the Gothic plate armor was. And wow, look at us. Finally broke free from the chains. Then, I went ahead and started leveling my weapon up. But I did dupe a few upgrade materials so I wouldn't have to grind for too long. I upgraded it to +3, and then crushing. I needed some greystone chunks, so I went deeper into the Stonefang tunnel. Since I was heading down there, I thought I might as well kill the flame lurker, and the fight went pretty okay. My damage wasn't anything super crazy, but it was definitely a lot better than last time. I made myself human in the fight to make things a tiny bit easier. He didn't do a ton of damage to me either, so it was not a very long fight. Took him down, leveled up a bit, and then went to farm rockworms for greystone chunks. And I kid you not, I was here for like 40 minutes, punching rockworms. But after a long while, I did end up getting one, and then I just duped it, because I was not going to farm any more of that. I got my weapon to +4, and I didn't upgrade it ever after that. I never got it to +5. After that exhausting grind, I decided to go and kill the Tower Knight real quick to relax, and to get him out of the way. I went across the bridge to his arena. I took out his crossbows, and his ankles broke up really fast. He fell down, and then I practically eviscerated him. And now I thought it was time for the Dragon God. I ignored the Dragon Bone Smasher first thing in the arena because that's not very historically accurate of me to grab. And then I got pancaked. But ignoring that, after enough patience and waiting around and breaking rubble, I harpooned him. Then I harpooned him again. And then I smacked his chin and he fell down and died. And there he goes. That is our first Archdemon. Here, I felt a bit powerful and angry, so I decided to murder this guy in front of the first Archstone. Sorry, bro. Then I thought I'd go and get the Thief Ring, because it could make my job fighting the old hero way easier, and I did exactly that. I didn't think he would really be that hard, and I was right. We did really solid damage. I did get hit around a bunch, so it was a little bit messy, but it was going pretty well. I was definitely being too greedy in a lot of places because I realized a lot of my attacks were staggering him, but other than that, he eventually went down. See, I could go in and kill the Storm King right now, but here's why I'm not gonna do it. For the Storm King fight, you usually use the Storm Ruler in the arena to deal damage to him. But we can't exactly use that, because that goes against the rules of our run. There's no record of any 15th century knight taking down anybody or wielding a giant Storm Flamberge, so unfortunately we can't use it. Instead, what we can do is kill him with a bow, which isn't actually as hard as it might sound. Bows were used pretty much for forever, and they were most definitely used in the 15th century. One of the longbows that I found were used during this time is the English longbow. This specific bow is very long, but there is a longbow we can get from Grave Robber Blige, so we'll go right ahead and get it. Fun fact, when I first played Demon Souls fully, I did beat the Storm King with a bow and arrow. I just don't really remember why I did that. I grabbed the bow and I upgraded it a little bit so that we could do enough damage. And I went straight for the Storm King. I started slowly taking care of the flying storm beasts around the area so that they wouldn't bother me during the quote-unquote fight. Slowly but surely, a few of them died, and then the Storm King eventually came down to face me. And you know what? Our damage was actually pretty solid. Definitely wasn't what I was expecting. When the Storm King was flying away, we did considerably less damage on its underside, so we basically had 1 or 2 attacks where we could actually get damage off. The only really dangerous part about this fight is that when I'm aimed, I sometimes have trouble dodging the projectiles he shoots at me. But apart from that, there was really no issue. After 5 minutes or so of shooting, he went down and it was a pretty tame fight. I increased my vitality to 30 and then I threw the rest of the points into strength. I finally went to the Tower of Latria after neglecting it for the entire playthrough. And everything was going pretty nicely here, honestly. I got the wizard's clothes and put on the torso part because it very closely resembles a gambeson. And I thought it could historically fit because not everybody could afford armor, and gambesons were used for a while, and very commonly. So I just used it for the fashion. The rest of Latria was pretty boring, since apart from that, I didn't really get or do anything else specific, so we can skip right ahead to the Fool's Idol. I killed the ugly dude who revives her at the top, and then went straight into the fight. Made myself human before the fight, as usual, for the extra HP, and our damage was very, very good. Although I did struggle on finding her and got trapped a few times, but they weren't doing that much damage to me, so it was really quick. Anyway, afterwards I went straight into the second part of Tower of Latria. I killed the praying guys with the piss orbs, which takes care of 1 out of 2 before we unchain the heart. Then I met up with the guy with the frogmouth helmet. Now, here, I had a plan to use this guy's armor and helmet, which looked similar to the frogmouth helmet used in the 16th century, except it was a little bit too decorated for me, so I decided against it. I went ahead and took care of the next piss orb prayers, and that was the heart dropped, and I was basically ready to fight the man-eaters. The man-eater fight went pretty good as well. I played around the fire in the middle, and just waited for them to perch. Our damage was solid, as usual, and overall it was just a waiting game more than anything. I remember when I first fought the man-eaters, I had a horrible time. Like, really bad. So my first experience was pretty haunting with these guys. But that aside, they really got stomped. And here I'm realizing that our build is pretty good. And I think it's because it's really simple. Now it was time for the old monk. And when I first went up the stairs, I thought I actually got a player to fight because I couldn't skip the cutscene. That wasn't the case, unfortunately. I actually don't know if the cutscene is meant to be skippable or not, but I got excited for a second. And then I got flayed by the Cthulhu Black Phantom. But now it was actually time to demolish the old monk. I just have way too much reach for any humanoid NPC to even have a chance to fight me. I see why polearms were meta now. After a long while of filling my plate armor with a gallon of sweat, I decided it was time for a historical upgrade. I went back to Tower of Latria's first area and I picked up the fluted set, which was basically the Maximilian set from the 16th century. So we just had an upgrade. Now, I was ready and historical to go and finally beat the ever-living shit out of the last entirety of Valley of Defilement. And that's exactly what I did. I went up to the Dirty Colossus, and I smacked him around a little bit. Because, with my new defenses, nothing could make me bleed. But, after he died, he got angry at me from past the grave and had his fly henchman rip me to bits. Damn you. I put all my points into strength again, and then made my way down to the Plague Baby Valley, where I had to slowly pick away at a man with very pretty armor. And it took a bit, but he eventually went down because he's not a very experienced fighter. he did the same thing again and again until he died. It did feel really bad to have a girl leave the world because of us, to be honest, but, you know, it doesn't matter, because at least we look cool. And finally, it was time for the last bit of the game. The 2 last parts of Bolitaria. I ran through most of it pretty quick. Frida Strava again, and wow, he's really running for his life here.
I'll never make it. I'll be killed.
And this time, we're matching.
This is the third
So
time
cute.
I am truly indebted to you. This is
Give me a rock, and that's exactly what I needed to beat the Penetrator. Easily the coolest boss in the game. I also picked up the Redditor hat as another lucky charm. And now, I was ready. And yeah, so my game crashed. Anyway, now I'm ready to fight him. And it was actually pretty scuffed, because I barely remember how to fight this guy. And for some reason, I forgot that most fights in this game are more about spacing and distance than dodging. That aside, we dealt a buttload of damage anyway, so he went down pretty quick, just like everybody else. Then my game crashed again. I continued through hoping that wouldn't happen again. Got ganked by these 3 clowns, and then Ulan fucking fire tempested me? Yeah, I had no clue she could do that. Like, genuinely, I've never seen this before, so that was a surprise. Then the Tower Knight really fucked my weapon up, and it broke, so I had to chip away at him with my broken Murden hammer. I did fix it later though. I watched the fat official get eviscerated, then I simply just ran past the stupid blue dragon. And wow, look who it is. It's my Ostrava. And he's dying. What a sad little guy. I wish he didn't have to die, honestly. He tragically respawned as a black phantom, and I had to put him out of his misery. It was now time to face Ostrava's father's demonic persona and put his life to an end. Wow, this cutscene is really cool though. They completely messed this up in the remake, and his expressions are just not it. Also, I'm not sure if any of you have seen the cut version of this cutscene, but you should really go check that out. Trust me, it's worth your time. Now, as for the fight, it wasn't anything too bad. It was messy, and I did mess up here and there. I got greedy, again, with my hits, because I thought I'd stun him out of most moves. And I dodged into some of the moves, but that didn't really work out. Also, surprisingly, I got hit with a Soul Drain for the first time in my life. When I first played Demon Souls, I remember seeing a video of people getting hit by it, and I was scared of getting hit by it because I thought it would drain way too many levels from me. So I used to be nervous. Anyway, he went down without too much trouble, and that's also one of the coolest fights done. I like treating him like a final boss fight, and I know probably most of you do, because he just stands out in that way. So I end up always fighting him last, basically. The run was now coming to an end, and I watched the cutscene where the old one woke up. I actually went into free cam here and got a good look at this place before taking my leave afterwards. I beat an old man with my stick while he depressingly flailed around. That's the final boss. And that is the historically accurate run, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I had a ton of fun recording this, and it wasn't really like a super hard challenge run or anything like that, but it was definitely interesting. If you guys have any objections or notes to add to this run, or my loadouts, please do let me know. And if you have done anything like this and would like to share a cool historically accurate loadout, you can also talk about it in the comments. I will be making more challenge runs in the future, probably, so if you want to see more of that, please do subscribe. Okay, bye!